kind of like cloning yourself. Hi, I'm Darren Wright from 12 Church, and today we're looking at the final step in the Missional Living Map. I've been using these videos to kind of round out and test out the different ideas around this Missional Living Map before we lock down and round out and fill in the framework. So far, and I'll make this fast, so far we've looked at the launching level where we talked about being gospel saturated and Christ-centered and self-feeding. We moved into the advancing level where we talked about being partnered with others, equipped, and released for life on mission. We've moved into the accelerating stage where we talked about winning the lost and developing believers. And now we're talking about the 9th step, which is multiplying. This step is about growing the number of believers who are living all in on mission, as I expect and hope you are. It's also about multiplying groups of believers who are engaged in working together to intercede and to be trained in evangelism and encourage and hold each other accountable for living on mission. As I said in the past, living on mission isn't just about making converts, it's about making disciples. And it's not just about adding disciples, it is about multiplying disciples. It's about making disciple makers. Now, by definition, a disciple is a disciple maker, but too often we've just used that word disciple to describe someone who's, quote, a Christian, someone who's a believer, whether they're on mission or not. So how do we go about multiplying disciples, multiplying groups of disciples effectively? Well, as I said, it's kind of like cloning yourself, but with a very important modification, a very important twist. Yes, first of all, you need to be a disciple worth imitating. Someone who can say with confidence, follow me as I follow Christ. But then rather than trying to make people just like you, recognize that within the mission of Christ, people have different gifts and different functions, different passions, different resources. And the Lord wants to take those unique aspects and use them in ways that He could never use you or me in the mission. And part of our role as disciple makers is to help individuals understand how God can take their uniqueness, every aspect of them, and in that uniqueness, their unique story and gifts and passions can do amazing things through the work of the Spirit and their unique personality and wiring. For instance, you may be a teacher by way of gifting, maybe even a teacher by way of function when we talk about the APEST functions of the church. But your disciple may be an encourager by gifting and a shepherd by function. Very different from your wiring. Your role then as a disciple maker is to help them maximize that gifting and that function and every other aspect about them, place it in the hands of the Lord and allow Him to do uniquely what He wants to do through them. Now, while there are some uniquenesses for each of us and for even every group has its own little personality, there are some foundational things that need to be poured into others and poured into the groups. I would say a foundational idea is the whole idea of multiplying disciples, to help every believer understand that they are called to reproduce themselves in some way. Another foundational thing you want to pour into people is the importance of forming other groups. Whether they're wired like you or not, whether they're, quote, teachers, pastors, they still have the capacity to facilitate, to be a catalyst to forming new groups of believers who are living together on mission. I believe every believer is capable of facilitating discovery Bible studies, motivating and teaching others how to intercede, modeling a life on mission, a life of personal evangelism. Another foundational practice would be to give the resources your disciple needs and mentor them one-on-one if necessary to help them understand how to use all of the different ideas without getting overwhelmed or confused, helping them understand which tools to use in which context and how to work with unique people they're working with. It's also incredibly important that we multiply into our disciples and into our groups the idea that it's not just about us, it's not just about our group, it is about out there. It is about living a life on mission, being salt and light and perfume outside the church, whatever form the church takes. An ingrown house church is no better than an ingrown legacy church. It's still ingrown, and the people need to break out of that shell and move out into the community, out into relationships with those who don't yet know the Lord. And so we need to train our people how to be intercessors, including listeners for the direction and how the Lord wants them to engage in their neighborhood and their workplace and their school, in their leisure activities, wherever the Lord may direct them. The power of multiplication lies in its exponential impact. When one disciple multiplies into 2 more, and those 2 multiply into 4 more, the impact of the gospel begins to flow out powerfully and rapidly. On the individual level, it's slow, but you add multiplication, and all of those slow things working together becomes very fast and very impactful. There are examples of this around the world happening right now. Multiplication is about generating a movement. And we require multiplication. We require a movement because addition is not going to cut it in our world today. I look forward to expanding on each level and each step in this missional living map. I see it as a framework into which we can place everything we are learning about how to live all in on mission with Jesus. If you can give a like to this video and any others that you deem worthy of a like that have been helpful, that would be excellent, would help us a lot. And be sure to subscribe so you can catch the updates to the Missional Living Map and all of the other training and resources and hopefully motivation we have coming down the pipes. Part of our mission is to share what we're learning about living on mission so you too can live all in on mission in your time and your place. God bless and press on.